That looks like you.
That was me.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Lock and Load Game Fest 2019. I'm Doug Hamilton, digital sculptor for Privateer Press, and I have a special guest announcer with me today.
Hello, everyone. I am Jay Larson. I am the president of Mise on Minis. We do some licensing stuff with Privateer Press, and also I help run the Chain Attack Community Builders. We do podcast Chain Attack, and then we also try to talk about the different things that will help improve the community.
Great. And I love having Jay with me. He's going to bail me out every time I make a mistake. Today we're calling the Iron Gauntlet, round one.
Yeah, so this is the first round of the Iron Gauntlet. The Iron Gauntlet is the culmination of a year of competition. It's been leading up to this point, and so it's exciting to see the first round taking place.
All right, let's see. Who do we have playing today in round one?
So round one, we've got Jeremy McClure playing Charles Song. They are both Canadian players.
Ooh.
So we've got a bit of a grudge match to see who's going to be the king of the North.
Little Civil War.
Yeah.
All right, I'm looking forward to. So I have Jeremy's list in front of me. It's
Great.
Legion. I feel like that's kind of appropriate for me to go over. So I'm going to run through it. Jeremy's playing Primal Terrors, of course. His Warcaster today is going to be Callus, the Wrath of Everblight. So Callus 1. He is bringing in his battle group. He has the Blightbringer with him. Nice looking model. He has a Harrier. He has a Mock. He has a Spell Martyr, an Ogre and Bokur, a max unit of Rotwings, a second max unit of Rotwings, a full unit of Chosen, a second full unit of Chosen, and then for his free models, he has a double Hellmouth. Also nice looking models. Just my opinion.
Very, very well done. Okay, so for Charles' list, his two lists that he had was Ashland D'Elise and then Gorton Grunback. And the list that he selected was the Ashland list, and this is in the Lily's Resistance theme force. So in his list, he has Ashland D'Elise, he has Madelyn Corbeau as his Warcaster attachment. And then to finish out Ashland's battle group, he has Toro, the Vanguard, and a Freebooter. For the rest of the list, he has Anastasia Debray, he has Gaston Cross 1 with a Talon, and then he has Ragman, Trencher Commandos, a full unit with a command attachment and 3 weapon attachments, and then Trenchers with the command attachment. So then to finish out the list, he has Thorngun Mages and Eilish. So one of the things with the Lily's Resistance theme force is that it gives you a bit of a mix-up on what you can take with your army composition. And so the Trencher Commandos and the Trenchers, these are Signar models, but because of the Lily's Resistance, they're going to be counted as mercenary models, and they're in-faction mercenary models.
So he's getting an interesting mix of models in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the Callus list is pretty straightforward, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of a list that last year Jake Van Meter there was a little bit back and forth in the Legion community on what they thought was going to be the most common Primal Terrors list, and Jake was a little bit in the minority thinking that Callus 1 was going to be the right way to go, and some of the other ones that were under debate was the new caster that had come out. But we've been seeing a lot of Callus 1 lately, and in this format, we're going to see even more, because the format for Iron Gauntlet this year is the Champions format, and so they have a limited set of casters that they can pick from, and so that kind of narrows things down a little bit as well.
So Callus is getting his shot back at it again.
Yeah.
All right, and did you want to talk about our scenario today?
Yeah, so the scenario is Recon. We have the 2 rectangular squares. If you control that with a Warjack or a Battle Engine, a Warcaster, then you're going to score a point. The flag with a Solo or Warcaster, you score a point. And then when you destroy an objective, that's also a control point. I believe that they each took healing as their objectives.
Yes, that is correct.
And then to win the scenario, you need to end your turn with 5 or more control points than your opponent, or if you get an assassination.
Well, I'm putting my money on Canada.
I think that's probably a safe bet, yeah.
And I'm also going to put it on Legion, I think. So you have to take Lely's.
Okay. I mean, Charles is a great player, so I don't feel bad with my odds.
Right. I'm throwing in with the Blighted. Legion would expect that from me. So
That's fair enough. So we're already going here on looks like the
Setting
first
up.
player is finishing his distant deployment. And then it's going to go over to Charles, and he'll do up his advanced deployment. Then we'll get going with the match.
Right, setting up the super advanced deploy for the Hellmouth.
Yeah. Yeah, so it should be an interesting match. So, some of the things that make it interesting, if you look at Charles, some of the things that Ashlyn is really good with is if you have, say, an average to hit odds, then under Ashlyn's feet, your odds are going to become really bad.
Right, because you roll an extra die and drop
Roll
the highest.
2 extra die, and
2 extra.
Then
Whoa.
I think she gets to pick what dice you are going to be discarded.
Yeah, that's scary. I remember playing against her a few times, and she's not fun to play
Yeah, so but
against.
part of what makes this interesting is that if you, let's say that Jeremy has 2 units of chosen.
Right.
So these are Ogre and Cav in the Legion of Everblight list, that they're going to be charging in, and when he's charging in, they're going to be rolling 5 dice because on a cavalry charge, you have your base 2 dice, you have an additional die with the cavalry attack, and then under feet, it's 5 dice. His opponent Charles will make him drop the 2 of those, so it's still 3 dice to hit, and a lot of times with that many dice, it's still going to be enough to hit unless you're hitting something that has a high defense value.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see how impactful the defensive portion of Charles' feat ends up being.
Okay. Well, it looks like the players they've shaken hands, and it looks like they're ready to go.
Looks like he's figuring out where he's going to get his Blightbringer running up to.
Right.
Another thing that's going to be interesting about this matchup is that one of the signature spells that, maybe not signature spell, I shouldn't say, one of the prime spells that Ashlyn has is Distraction. So this spell does target warrior model / unit cannot make range attacks and suffers -2 defense and mat for 1 round. So this is obviously a spell that's very good, usually against range attacks, but the Primal Terrors list does not have much in the way of range attacks from his warrior models.
Right.
So
Not really. He's gonna be kind of up in your face.
it will be kind of interesting to see if he tries to get distraction on, say, the Cav or something before feet, so that it makes it so he has a hard time hitting with feet. But I'm assuming that that's going to be just too difficult to get off before feet. If he tried to do that, Ashlyn would probably die.
She definitely has the debuffs going, doesn't she?
Yeah. So it's looking like where that Privateer Press proxy is where the Blightbringer is going to go, and so right around we're gonna bring out some secret tech here and
we're gonna learn
show
to
the
telestrate.
telestration. So
you're saying the Blightbringer is going to go right?
Yeah,
there?
that's where he's been telegraphing with his proxy base. That's where he's going to end up running his Blightbringer to. He's the first player, so he's obviously not giving away any information by doing that.
He's just plotting things out.
Yeah. Another thing that's going to be interesting about this matchup is that he has, with the Primal Terrors list, he has 2 units of Rotwings. And one of the things that's going to be interesting with this is the Rotwings, a lot of times, they don't necessarily get a ton of work done themselves, but they end up jamming out the opponent. They help with scenario. And they also, when Callus has his feet up, you kill them, and then an Incubus comes up in their place.
That's where the Incubi are going to come from, you think?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
he's going to likely have a bunch of jamming going on with those rot wings, and then they'll get replaced. And there's going to be Charles is going to have a lot of stuff that he's going to have to be trying to work through in order to get through to the rest of the list.
Jeremy wants his rot wings to die, doesn't he?
He knows they're going to.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Hopefully, I'm sure that he would prefer that they would get a little bit of work if possible, but
a little bit of work, and then feet time they get a little more work.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and switch over back to the telestrator again. You can see that they have been right in this area here. His Hellmouth had a tentacle move up there, and he put out another template. He's figuring out where his Blightbringer is going to end up shooting his own Hellmouth with, and that's going to put out a Scalar template. Sorry, not Scalar is not the correct term. It's going to leave out an AoE there. That it ends up doing the effect that he has chosen for when the Blightbringer activates. It can pick 3 different options. Usually when this list is going on, it has a bit of a it's usually focusing on armor.
Right. The Dragon's Breath, which gives that +2 strength and armor for anything underneath.
Yeah. And so that's the most common one that he'll likely see throughout, that he ends up doing throughout it. But it can do other ones as well. The other ones that he has, one will make it so that you can't cast spells or channel spells in there, and the other one does -2 defense and loose tough. And the Blightbringer also gives that out as an aura that is going out from him as well.
Right. So it's pretty common to keep the Ogren in that aura since it affects warrior models.
Right.
And Jay and I were talking about the Incubus and what happens when the rot wings die. And so if you're not familiar with Callus's feat, I'll run over it real quick. When a friendly living non-Incubus warrior faction model in Callus control range is disabled by an enemy attack, you can replace it with an Incubus model.
Go ahead.
Jay's having technical difficulties. Don't do this, Jay. I need you. The replaced model is removed from play. While in Callus's control range, friendly soulless warrior models gain +3 defense. Host of Angels lasts for 1 round. So he's going to flood the battlefield, I think.
Yeah, so Callus has moved up. He's sitting on 3 right now. I'm assuming he got Ignite on something and cast an Animus. I can't really see what...
Right, and I looked away for a minute and I didn't see what he ended up casting.
Yeah.
So, Jay, is there a story about the Hellmouth being your favorite model?
So I'm not sure if I'm sure you have, but have you ever seen the Mad Max meme about that's bait? That's totally what you've just done to me. Baited me into saying something I regret. But yeah, I mean the Hellmouth can be a difficult model to kill and to figure out how you're going to deal with. It's just a really difficult model to remove from the table when it's next to the Hellmouth and it's getting the plus to armor.
Right.
You're rolling 1 less die against it. It can be difficult to deal with.
Yeah, Twitch would just, they were asking that question, is there, talking about Jay's favorite model of the Hellmouth. What Jay meant was it's a beautiful model, I think.
That's true. Yeah. One of the comments is that they had me comment this just because I love the Hellmouth so much.
I'm sure you do.
And yes, this is one of the questions on there is if it was Jay Larson. It is me commentating.
Luckily, today we have special guest Jay. I was excited when they asked if I was okay streaming with Jay Larson. I was like, Jay Larson, the real Jay Larson? Ooh, first Iron Gauntlet champion Jay Larson.
Yeah, that was 5 years ago. I got a Facebook reminder recently.
In the intro video, I saw you hoisting the trophy there, and It seems so long ago, and you look so young.
So young, so svelte.
All right, looks like Jeremy moved his chosen up. Doesn't look like he's going to sit back on it, is he?
No, I mean he's going to be moving forward, getting pressure on his opponent. I think one of the things that you're likely going to see Charles try to do is try to use the scenario to, even though he's going second, I would expect Charles to likely try to use the scenario to apply pressure on his opponent. And so doing a little illustration again, one of the areas that's going to be really important for Charles is this area right here. He's got 4 inches around his flag. Charles is going to score first on the second, bottom of the second turn, and so he's basically going to get a free point pretty quickly there on that flag.
Just controlling it?
Yeah, and then the question is going to be what happens here on this other flag. His opponent, I would kind of expect, will likely have a solo that's going to be going up on that flag, forcing Charles to figure out what he's going to do to stop scoring on his turn. And Charles will likely try to either remove the solo that's up there on his opponent's flag or move something up to contest, and then that'll kind of start drawing the line of battle with things and kind of force the action.
Do you think that Jeremy is going to have any issue with the zones with only having 2 beasts to control them?
I don't think so. I think that what's likely going to happen is that this battle's going to attrition down some until one of the opponents is going to have a hard time covering the zone.
Right.
And at that point, whether it's the Blightbringer or whether it's Callus, the scoring should speed up a little bit and end up not really have a problem, even though he has just 1 War Beast to score on the zones.
Now, I'm not overly familiar with Charles' army. What should Jeremy be worried about? Is there a specific unit there, or is it just going to be an all-purpose, or is there one that's really going to be the threat against him?
So it's an interesting matchup. It's kind of tough to say because one of the things that you generally end up seeing is Charles has a bunch of range attacks, but they can do combined range attacks, but they tend to be a little bit lower power, and that's not going to do hardly anything versus the Chosen.
Yeah.
And so it makes it so that the way that the Chosen work, they have a high hit points, they have high armor, and then they have regeneration after they take a hit. And so if Charles will probably do some combined range attacks so that he's getting a higher attack damage value into the Chosen.
Okay.
And be trying to get them whittled down some. But there's some times where if you roll poorly, then you can actually end up healing the Chosen.
Right.
Right. If you have a poor damage roll.
Yeah, they're tough to bring down.
I think that one of the things so Charles is now starting his turn.
Right, bottom of turn 1 here.
On the bottom of 1, right. And so I think that I've played some games versus Charles in tournaments, etc., and I think that one of the things that he's going to be aware of at this point is that his opponent has ended his turn at 44 minutes. And so I think that in the back of the mind, one of the things that Charles is going to be thinking about is that if he's conscious of the time, that's something that he can use to be applying pressure onto his opponent.
That's a long first turn, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I can understand. If this is, you know that you're on being watched by a crowd, you don't want to make a mistake, but it's it is something that if I was in Jeremy's shoes, I'd be a little bit worried about at this point.
Right.
So Charles is going. He's gotten Quicken on the commandos, and that has that's giving them +2 speed and +2 defense against range and magic attacks. The defense versus the magic attacks likely won't be super relevant in this matchup, but we'll see how it plays out. So now Jeremy has the commandos going.
Charles is
Charles,
moving up, yeah. Spread them out.
Yeah, they're advancing up. He's got Charles has, or sorry, not Charles. Jeremy has an AOE with the Blightbringer that he doesn't want to get things too cramped up. Looks like he's mostly trying to stay outside of the charge range of the Chosen over on the other side. Looks like they ended up killing 3 models on their attacks, and now they're repositioning. He has his stick out, looking at what the max charge range is, making sure that he's staying outside of the threat range of those Chosen.
Right, doesn't want to face them. So Morris127 asks, are all the games today going to be on this table? Yes, I believe so. That doesn't mean the terrain won't change around a little bit, but yes, we are going to have 3D tables like this for all of our streams.
I guess I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I know that Danny did a gorgeous Infernals table.
Yes.
I'm assuming the championship. Cool. So the finals game will be on the
giant infernal table.
Yeah.
I think it's like a 7-foot tower that Danny built.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
It's pretty big.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks great too.
So I don't think we said this at the start, but we can talk a little bit about the Iron Gauntlet format and what these guys did to get here.
Right, and Jay, you would know as you've been here before.
Yeah, they've actually, over the years, Privateer Press has evolved this format, trying to get what they think is going to be the most interesting or fun format. And back in my day, when I hiked up the hill both ways in the snow, the format for Iron Gauntlet was they allowed us to take cross-faction lists, and so there were a lot of people who were taking Asphyxius 2 and Haley 2 and stuff like that.
The glory days.
And now and now they've the most recent update with what we're doing with Iron Gauntlet is there are qualifiers, and if you run an event, you contact Will Hungerford and say that you want to get approved as a qualifier event. And there's a lot of the tournaments or conventions where they will apply to have both their Masters event and both their Champions event be qualifier events. And you get points based on how you do. First place, you get 10 points, second place 7, and I think 3 for third place.
Okay.
And so any player who had 10 points was qualified to be able to come play in the event here in the championship. So if you get first place, you're automatically qualified. If you place in a couple events, you can earn up enough points to be able to come and play in the Iron Gauntlet championship. Right. One of the things that's interesting about this year is that Hungerford has set up the format so that last year was Masters, and that was the format for that event. And then he wanted to rotate between Masters and Champions each year so that it kind of encouraged or incentivized people to know and play both formats.
Right.
And so this year, it is the year where the Iron Gauntlet Championship is being decided by Champions. And Champions is a little bit of a restricted format where the players don't have full access to all their themes or all of their casters. They have a roster of casters that they can pick from, and
makes it a little extra challenging.
Yeah, yeah. But it also it can be fun and interesting being able to, like, going into it. It gives you kind of a set meta that you know that you're going to be gaming towards. For example, this Callous list is one that you know that you're going to want to. If you're wanting to win, you're going to be practiced against, and know that you know how to play into.
Right. And so I see, Jay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
yeah, no problem.
I see our players have 2 lists in front of us.
Yep.
Now, do they have to play both lists in this event, or can they just stay with one the entire time?
Once upon a time, it was set up so that you had to play both lists. They've changed it now so that no longer do you have to play both lists. It's just whatever you want to play.
So if Jeremy wants to stick with Callous 1 all day, he's good. Okay.
Yep.
I that's good to know.
Yeah. So we've got the on. Let's do a little illustration again.
I can see you love it already.
So over on this side, this is where we've got the Trencher Commandos going. These models have stealth, and then here on the other side, you see some smoke clouds being put out there by the Trencher unit. This unit, they have a bunch of rules. They do a lot of things that are cool, but it's interesting that, as I said before, that it was we thought that it was going to be likely that this was going to be a really important area of the table for Charles, because it's the area that's strongest for him to be able to try to start scoring on at the start of the game.
Right.
And so Charles has moved up and put up those smoke clouds to try to defend the stuff behind there, so that it makes it so that it protects the stuff that's behind there, and it's going to make it so that it's a little bit more difficult for Jeremy to try to stop the scoring on that other side.
And can you tell me again, for scoring the zone? So I know we can score the zones. So controlling each zone is a point, and it starts on the second player's second turn.
Yep.
And then we also have the objectives that can be destroyed. So they can get another point that way. And then controlling the flags, is that another option on this one also?
Let me
back to the telestrator.
We'll go back to the telestration.
I like it.
Okay, so right here, that's one of the objectives.
One of the healing objectives. They both have healing.
I believe right here.
I believe you are right.
Is where we have the other objective. So when you destroy those, you are going to get a point.
Right.
The next place, you have these flags here. These flags are, you have to have base to base, either a solo or a warcaster, and then nothing within 4 inches from your enemy, so that you can score those. And then obviously the rectangular zones,
which can only be controlled by a beast or a jack, or
beast
a caster.
Jack, or battle engine.
Battle engine.
Yep.
Okay. Very good.
Neither player have those, so we don't need to worry about that this time.
Thank you. I just kind of refreshing on where I need to be.
No problem. So, talking again a little bit about the time disparity, Charles ended his turn at 49 minutes, which is he did some attacks. He got some effects out. That's a pretty good place to be at the end of his second turn. Jeremy's now started his third turn.
Second turn, right?
Oh, sorry, yeah, second turn.
And is Jeremy going to? Is he going to slam into those lines this turn?
You know, I'm guessing what it's looking like is that he's looking at where he's going to run in with the Hellmouth, run in maybe a tentacle, and then have the Blightbringer do an AoE on there and try to kill 2 trenchers with some blast damage.
Okay.
He had a little blast widget out there that made it look like that's what he was maybe kind of looking towards.
Right.
One of the things he's going to have to decide is if he's going to decide to move up and commit some stuff in there. I'm assuming that he's probably not going to, and that it's going to just kind of be open for Charles to score the flag the next time, because if he could potentially shoot the plus arm out there and move some Chosen in there, but it seems like it would give offering up potentially too much for Charles to attack into.
Very good.
Man, that's a tough question. If I was Jeremy, I think one of the things that I would probably be considering is if I was going to have my Rot Wings be kind of running up and jamming. It's kind of interesting that it looks like he has, it's maybe a little bit tough to tell, but if we go back to the Telestrator, I think that these models back in here are kind of his units of Rot Wings. They have flight, so he can run them up in, but it's going to be interesting to see when he decides he's going to commit those, and when they're going to be jamming, and when he's going to feat, and when they're going to be turning into incubi.
Right. I'm curious to see when they actually jump into the battle themselves.
Yeah. Another thing that a synergy with the feat. I know you went over this already, but they're going to come out when he kills a Rot Wing, and then it puts out the incubi, and the incubi, it says at the end of the feed, it says, while in Callus's control range, friendly soulless warrior models gain +3 defense. So the incubi are soulless. They're going to pop out, and they're going to get a +2 defense once they pop out.
And can he activate the incubi on the turn they pop out? See, I'm putting you on the spot.
Let me double check what the feat says real quick. So it's happening on the opponent's turn.
Okay.
So Charles is going to kill the Blight Wings, Rot Wings, and they'll come out immediately.
Gotcha.
And
so
then
if Charles chose to not kill anything on feat turn,
yeah, it'll just go to
very good.
Go to Jeremy. Yeah.
Right. Now it's clicking. I'm starting to remember how it works.
Okay. So I see here on the chat real quick, one of the Twitch people said that I'm trying really hard not to be tempted to buy into Infernals, but it's not easy. Let me just say I got a couple games in with Amadeus over this weekend. Predator Press was kind enough to send me some advanced models.
Yeah, I'm still bitter about that, Jay.
And it's a lot of fun. Just give in, sign the contract.
Right.
It's worth it.
That's my plan. I have some models together finally because, I want to be like Jay. So I'm going to get some games in tonight for the first time with him. I couldn't resist getting them. The whole faction looks great.
Yeah, did you do any of this?
I worked on the horrors, all the horrors, and then I'll work on the howlers.
Oh, okay,
for
great.
my contribution.
So, one of the things that was really impressive about the heavy horrors, in my opinion, some of the detail that you got in their carapace, I think, is really impressive.
Thank you.
I also the Soul Stalker. Some of the detail that it has is it's like sucking the soul out of its victims, and it has guys underneath it.
Everybody likes the Soul Stalker a lot.
Yeah. The horrors in general are really cool, and obviously all three Infernal Masters are really cool. I've been playing Amadeus this
That's
weekend,
the one I like. He looks like he's going to be good.
And he's just a centerpiece model that
huge.
Is honestly one of the exciting reasons to play the faction.
Good. So the answer is don't resist.
Correct. Sign that contract.
Right, yes.
So we've got the Hellmouth going. We've got one that it looks like it's probably getting placed in to where it's going to maybe be an AoE. And we've got an attack going on with one of them.
There's one gone.
Yeah, the 10's going to hit and kill a trencher.
So another attack from the Hellmouth.
Didn't break armor on a trencher. That's a sad day.
Oh, sounds like Charles and Jeremy are both laughing at that.
You'll notice too that, so again, not to harp on this, but one of the things I would be definitely worried about with Jeremy is that I'm on my second turn and it's 37 minutes left, and so that's going to start applying more and more pressure on Jeremy.
And I don't play a lot of timed games, but I can imagine as that clock gets lower and lower, you're prone to make mistakes.
Yeah, you end up having to hustle and make split-second decisions that you wouldn't necessarily make if you had a full amount of time going on. Okay.
So it was just pointed out to us that on Charles' dice, the symbol on the sixes has been rubbed off. So if it's blank, it's a 6.
Classic Charles.
From Twitch, Moore's127 points out that the paint jobs on these armies are great. I was just noting that myself earlier as we got a good view of like the striped hellmouth. Just both armies look really great. It's always great to see 2 fully painted armies, seeing them on this 3D terrain battlefield. It always looks impressive.
I'm going to go ahead and point out a model real quick that I've always loved. So right here we have a Loot Crate model that is the Angel of Ashlyn D'Elise, a alternate sculpt of her, and Privateer Press has done some really impressive sculpts with Loot Crate, in my opinion.
Well, I'm not going to lie, Jay. She's a good-looking model.
She is.
I'm a big fan of it for no particular reason.
Don't know what might...
We did not practice that, Jay. Just was.
I just like giving credit where credit is due.
Thanks, Jay. I owe you for that one.
But no, it is kind of exciting to see some of the mini crate, Loot Crate models on the table, and they definitely add some flair distinction to.
Absolutely. In fact, every month that I get one that's for an army that I play, it immediately goes into it.
So this is pretty interesting. I wasn't sure if Jeremy was going to do this or not, but you'll see that first of all he has the ring from the Blightbringer, and this is adding to the armor that the Chosen have. And towing in there, we've got 2 units of Chosen. I'd be very interested right now to know if, from going in right here, if he's going to reposition back. Okay.
Right. So he charges in, kills 2 of them, and then repositions back.
Right. So it'll be interesting to see how long Jeremy tries to do this kind of yo-yo going on with the Chosen.
Right, and especially it's a little time-consuming, too, as you mentioned earlier, with the clock it's not a factor yet, I don't think, but...
Oh, it's a factor.
Yeah, it's already low, danger zone.
We're on turn 2, and he's got 33 minutes. It's a factor. But it'll also be interesting because Charles is going to be able to do the same thing next round, where he's going to be able to go up, put a smoke cloud, protect his flag, and it doesn't... Jeremy's going to have a tough time kind of deciding, I think, what to do to deal with that. I think that it'll be interesting to see what he's doing with his birds right now. It's look like he's just repositioning them.
Right.
It feels like next round he's going to be forced where he's going to have to commit them to kind of be end up contesting the area after that.
Good. Yeah, he's still setting up.
I'm good.
This commentary is so good.
So we had one Will Hungerford come over and join us.
Hi, Jay. How's it going?
Hey, Will.
How's the game?
It's been an interesting matchup so far. I think a lot of people probably haven't seen very much Ashlyn in Lelys yet, and so
there he is.
Oh no!
To see me, Tony. Put the game back on.
Everybody wants to see Hungerford.
Nobody wants to see this.
We love Hungerford.
No,
we do. Everyone loves Will.
So Jay, before I get back out of here, who's winning? I'll call it now, or you can't do Dune memes on your podcast anymore.
Okay, Charles is going to win.
Well, I'm going to counter that.
Tony, I'm going to go DQ Charles. I'll be right back.
I'm good with that.
So one of the comments in the chat is that we need to see some Ashland too, and I've got to admit, I kind of agree.
I also agree. I think they were concepting Ashland 2 this weekend.
Oh, wow.
Maybe a live concept session with Mike Valancourt.
Nice. Yeah, one of the things that's interesting about Mercenaries is that they have so many casters that I would love to see more incarnations of. So if you look at a caster like Gorton or Ashland, it feels like there's a lot of opportunities for some interesting ways for the game to expand.
A few friends that they want more dwarves is what they tell me.
So the Dragon Pup says, Jay's prediction is spicier than P.F. Chang's. One of the running traditions that Hungerford and I have is that conventions we go to P.F. Chang's, and it's always a good time. Get a feast like kings.
That's one of the benefits of going to cons is all the interesting foods we get to check out.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see what Jeremy does here on his right flank. We're looking down on top. And over on the right one, he's a little bit weaker on that side, and I'm guessing that he's going to not end up committing a solo to his flag yet. And then next round, he'll clear that area around there, have a solo on there, and try to score some points there.
Right. It looks like Jeremy's moving some of his Rotwings over to that flank, or to that right side, I should say.
Yeah.
I was wondering if he was going to bring anything else over there.
One of the things that's interesting with the Chosen is that those Chosen that he has over on Jeremy's right flank, they're not as buffed up since they're not going to have the buffs from the Blightbringer going on. But it will, even without the buffs, it makes it, they're still a pretty hardy unit, and they should probably stand up okay versus the range attacks from the commandos.
Right.
One of the things that'll be interesting to see next turn on Charles is whether or not he's going to opt to feat. I think that one of the things that Charles is going to be looking at right now is he's going to be probably seeing one of his primary win conditions being the time, and also just trying to score his flag and put some pressure on his opponent. And I feel like if he plays kind of a conservative game where he's forcing his opponent to come into him, make mistakes, use his time, that it's going to be a strong strategy for Charles to pursue, and it's what I'm kind of expecting him to do.
He has a lot of time left, doesn't he?
Yeah, well, Charles has only done one turn so far,
yeah.
So
Be interesting how this turn goes right here, because he can start scoring this turn.
Yeah, I mean, Charles will definitely end up scoring. Looking at Jeremy's flag, it looks like, so again, Jeremy's flag is going to be over there on the other side. It's this one up here. He doesn't have, as near as I can tell, a solo that's facing that flag. He has some Chosen over there contesting the zone. But if he had something up there that was on the flag, Charles would have either tried to kill the solo or would have ended up moving something there to contest so that his opponent didn't score this round.
Right, and it looks like he doesn't have. He's got, as far as solos go, he has the.
Yeah, he doesn't have
Ogre
much in the way of solos. He's probably going to be waiting until his feet goes off and the rot wings end up popping out incubi.
Right.
Looks like Charles is spending a few minutes starting off, planning out his turn, trying to decide what he's going to proceed with as the plan of his attack. One of the things I've found is that it's almost always worth spending a few moments at the start of your turn to decide what your priorities are. And if you formulate a clear plan at the start of your turn, then it makes it so that your turn's going to go a lot smoother, and you're not going to have as many issues, etc. As things go on.
That's something I noticed that the good players, meaning not like me, the good players usually they'll think ahead about it. Whereas a player like me, I wing it and then I regret what I did.
I mean, a lot of times you'll have, when I play, I'll try to have primary objectives, and then when I'm thinking about it, I'll try to have decision trees or branches where if I decide, like, okay, I'm going to attack this target with these models, and if I fail to kill it, what am I going to have as my backup plan, or how am I going to finish it off? And if you have some planning like that at the start of your turn, it can help things smooth out a little bit.
So, Mustache000 says, wow, two really nice guys playing. We agree they're Canadian. Of course they're nice. Sad that they play in the first round. And then they say, the sweet voices of Jay and Doug do, on the other hand, make me feel safe again. I'm not so sure about that one, but thank you.
Earlier in the turn, it looked like Charles was measuring out by that other flag. He had a few small bases that he was proxying in. I'm not sure if he was going to be... I'm guessing that he was probably looking at some charge lanes, etc., seeing where he could land.
Are you still thinking he feats with Ashlyn this turn, or depends on how it plays out?
I'm not sure if he's. I'm not sure. I think honestly the thing that Charles is going to look at the most is trying to maximize it on what turn he's going to need it for his attack rolls, because Ashlyn's feat has both an offensive and defensive component to it.
It's funny you say that, because I was thinking my next question for you was going to ask if those extra dice affects her army also.
Yeah, and so if I had to bet, I would say that he's probably not going to feat yet, because I don't think that Charles is necessarily going to commit too hard yet. I think that he's going to keep being a little bit patient, force his opponent to come into him a little bit more, and then he'll probably pop his feet then and try to maximize his attacks.
Turn 3 feet.
Yeah, I mean, another reason why the defensive aspect isn't necessarily as valuable in this matchup is that we mentioned before about the cavalry and cavalry charges, but another spell that Callus has that could end up making it so that her feat is of less value is he has Dark Guidance. It's going to be adding another additional die, and so if you're doing a cavalry charge, we're potentially looking at roll 6 dice, keep 4.
That's scary.
That's still a lot of dice thrown around.
It's a lot of dice. So Jay, if he is using Dark Guidance, he gets an extra die. Does Charles still get to pick which one then?
Yeah, Charles will pick.
So it's almost detrimental to use Dark Guidance.
Well, it's still definitely a good thing.
Okay.
Because let's say that you are Mat 7.
Right.
And that you're trying to hit, say, defense 13. Most of the trenchers are defense 13.
Okay. So I need a 6.
So you're needing to get 6. Let's say that you roll 5, 6, 2, 2, 1, 1. Keeping 4 dice, that 2, 2, 1, 1 is going to be enough to be hitting that 13.
I think I'd be a little upset, though, if I'm throwing Dark Guidance out there and all of a sudden I'm throwing all these dice and I'm still missing.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Another thing that is potentially useful for Charles with this feat is that when he's rolling that many dice, he can be using it. Another ability that the Chosen have is the Mount has a critical knockdown.
Oh, yeah.
And so if he's rolling 6 dice, Charles can be looking for any doubles and removing those so that he's not getting the crit knockdown, which can be another potentially useful use of it.
Right.
Sorry, it wouldn't be 6 dice on the impact attack, where you wouldn't get the cav dice from that, but you're looking at 5. So that's still a lot of dice for you to be looking at doubles at. So could be a good use for Charles on the feet.
If they have the feet up and these spells going around, that's going to be too much math for me.
Yeah, that's a lot of dice thrown.
It really
it's true.
is. It's an interesting matchup.
So looks like Charles is doing his commandos. I believe that he's charging in with them.
Let's jump in and draw some arrows.
Yeah, we've got up around over in here.
So he's charging in here or just repositioning back over here?
I think he's going to be charging in on the stuff in there. It looks like when he had done some stuff with the commandos in the past, that they. Oh, okay. He's changing his other mind. It looks like.
He is.
And they are backing up a little bit on the commandos.
Like you, I thought he was just eyeing up a charge lane, and that we were wrong.
Yeah. It looks like he probably gave a press forward order, and so some of those other ones, some of these back in this area, they ended up running and repositioning back in there, and then the models that he has, like there, that one ended up charging in.
Okay.
So.
How big of a factor is that impassable terrain?
I think the model that's hurt the most by it is the Blightbringer. Huge bases in general tend to be affected by impassable terrain or walls a little bit more than some of the other models. And it kind of creates a divide on the battle that it makes it so that if one of the flanks collapses, then it makes it so that it can be harder for the player who's lost the models on that flank to recover from it and get stuff sent back over to the other side to help contest.
Unless it's the Rotwings, they can fly.
Yeah.
If they can move completely past it.
Yep. It is interesting a little bit to see that both of the players are going a little bit weak on this zone over here. We see some contesting going on with these models.
They're playing it pretty safe, though.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if... I think that if I was Jeremy, I would probably be trying to look at... His Blightbringer is clear over here. It's not going to be able to score this zone for him.
Right.
But I would probably be looking at trying to get this zone over here cleared and then trying to get Callus moved over to this flag or something like that.
He doesn't have a Harrier that he could fly over there.
Okay, yeah, he could get the Harrier over there as well. That would be great.
I forgot about the Harrier hiding somewhere.
If he was able to do something to where he's getting scoring going on both the zone and the flag, it's going to help alleviate some of the scenario pressure that Charles is going to be trying to start applying in the game.
It looks like Charles is lighting things on fire.
Yeah, it looks like this is the Thorn Gun Mages that are going. And the Chosen, they're, as we talked about earlier, they take a few points of damage and then they heal them back up.
Heal right back up.
That's kind of the rinse and repeat story of the battle against the Chosen.
Right.
But we do have a Tentacle and Chosen on fire now. Looking at them on the rapid healing with the Chosen, it says when this model is damaged by an enemy attack immediately after the attack was resolved, remove D3 damage points from it. So the fire is not going to trigger the rapid healing. It's going to be at dice off 5 if it doesn't go out, and it's not going to have the aura from the Blightbringer buffing it up because it's a new round, and so it hasn't activated yet and gotten that going.
So realistically, they could do a point of fire damage and then heal a couple of points if they were wounded.
They wouldn't have the healing. because the
because
fire
they weren't
doesn't
hit by it.
The fire doesn't
Yes,
trigger
correct.
healing.
Right. I was thinking that was just going to be like regeneration.
Right. So if he
Does Charles charge the Chosen?
I don't think he charged the Chosen.
Just walked up.
Yeah, it looks like he's doing kind of what we predicted earlier. He's moving forward with his trenchers. He's reestablishing his clock wall, and he's again. This is actually right before this. We got together to commentate this game. I had a discussion with a player who we didn't even really play a game. He asked for advice from me on. He felt like when he was going second that he had issues with what to do to not lose too much of your army, or how to apply pressure on his opponent, stuff like that. And he was having an issue where a lot of times he would move forward and just end up feel like his opponent was at a big disadvantage, or he was at a big disadvantage because his opponent would get an alpha strike or whatever. And Charles is really doing a good job of showing how going second can really be a strong tactical option. This is giving him a chance.
Is this a gutsy move here?
We'll see. I don't think it's going to be too gutsy.
Okay. She has a way to get out of there.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's definitely not staying there.
I didn't think she'd stay.
So Ashlyn is charging up, and she has dual attack. She also has lunge. She normally has a 1-inch melee range on her weapon, but lunge makes it so that it has 2-inch melee range.
Ah, okay. And she's a weapon master on her sword attacks?
Yeah, she is. So she's a power strength 11 weapon master.
With the charge?
With the charge.
Okay.
Kind of a weak roll. I'm sure Charles would have liked to see more. He did 2 points of damage. It healed 1.
So she hits with the next attack. Oh, that one's a little bit better, I think.
9 points. This is going to force a tough check.
And he's
no chuff, so he's going to...
Down he goes.
Go down. Then we've got a reposition 3. Ashlyn on 0 camp. I'm a little surprised that he took that gamble.
That's a little risky.
One of the things that's important to note is that when Charles placed that smoke cloud, he placed it so that it was barely touching the Chosen. And so Ashlyn had line of sight to that Chosen and was able to charge it. And then...
Because she ended in the Chosen, or she could see it in the cloud because it was touching
because it was touching the cloud.
Good.
And then, I've had the reposition to get back out. It'll be interesting to see if I was Jeremy, I would be pretty tempted to try to have my Blightbringer be doing some shots at Ashlyn, maybe have the Chosen look at even just advancing up in.
Right. And did he kill a tentacle last turn? I wonder if Ashlyn is in the range of a tentacle.
There is some dead tentacles.
And he just killed one.
I'm not positive if, given the command range of the Hellmouth, if it's going to be able to
close enough. Yeah,
go far enough over. I think it might be able to.
8 inches, I believe it's close.
Yeah. Okay, well, this is making a little bit more sense then. So let's talk a little bit about Madelyn Corbeau. Corbeau's going up to the flag, and
she's a solo, so she can control it.
Correct. Yeah.
All right. So the turn ends. Charles scores 1 control point with Madelyn.
Okay. So here's the abilities under Parlay. It's a star action. While in this model's command range, enemy warrior models cannot target this model or its warcaster with attacks. Parlay lasts for 1 round.
And is this a one-time use, or can he do this every turn?
It's a star action for him to do it, and it's basically an effect that's up there as long as she has parlay. As long as she's alive, that effect is going on.
She can just renew it each turn.
Right.
Good.
So she also has another ability. So you're probably thinking, what can I do to get around this? If I deal with Madelyn Corbeau, then I maybe have this opening where I can go and try to kill Ashlyn. Well, it's not super easy. So another ability that Madelyn has is Succor. Succor says if this model is directly hit by an enemy range attack, choose a friendly, non-incorporeal warrior model within 3 inches to be directly hit instead. That model is automatically hit and suffers all damage. So if Jeremy had thought, okay, I want to try to get in there, get some attacks onto Madelyn, and the way I'm going to do that is do some range attacks with the Blightbringer onto Madelyn, what's going to happen is those are going to get shifted over to some of the other models nearby, and she's going to be fine.
Right. And Madelyn's ability is so Madelyn and Ashlyn, neither of them can be targeted by ranged or melee attacks. Is that right?
Parlay is enemy warrior models cannot target this model or its warcaster with attacks.
Okay, so any attack.
And she is command 7.
Okay.
One of the ways that can be a strong way to deal with Madelyn, unfortunately, it's not really much of an option for Jeremy right now.
It looks like he's moving the Blightbringer up.
Yeah, I think he was probably looking at potentially doing a trample or something like that to get up there. He wouldn't be able to charge Madelyn because the Blightbringer does have Isle of Sight, so he'd see through there and then be charging up. The Succor does not affect the Blightbringer, but it looks like Charles was able to get far enough back that he's actually outside of the range.
Sign of a good player.
So one of the things I was saying earlier, one of the good ways that you can try to deal with Corbeau sometimes is if you have an Arc Node or Channeler or something like that, you run it up and spell her to death. That can be a strong option.
Right.
The spells aren't going to end up being affected by Succor. It's just range attacks that get shunted over. And so that's one of the best ways to deal with her. And there's some lists that Callus 1 takes that will have a Spell Martyr, and actually we do have one Spell Martyr here in the list. That is potentially something that it's tough to see on this screen where exactly the Spell Martyr is.
I was looking for it, and I couldn't quite find it.
But it is potentially something that he could be considering.
Right. And if Madelyn is killed, her effect parlay still stays up until the next turn, or until the end of the turn?
No, so Madelyn's ability, she does a star action, and it is parlay, and it says, while in this model's command range, enemy warrior models cannot target this model or its warcasters with any attacks. Parlay lasts for 1 round. So if she's dead, parlay is going to be gone.
Okay, good.
So we've done a little research,
we have identified the Spell Martyr.
We've found the Spell Martyr. I hate to break this to you, but that's not going to do anything.
I don't know what it's doing up there.
That is not going to be able to run over and get the...
I don't think it's going to make it.
Yeah. It need to be able to get into the clouds and then arc from there. So...
But the question was why is Jeremy keeping that Spell Martyr so far back? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean honestly, I think the reason why is because if you look at Charles' lists, he has quite a few range attacks that are a little bit lower POW range attacks, and if he had it too far forward, then it potentially just ends up getting shot and killed.
Right.
Um,
So just kind of saving it for the right time?
Yeah. It's a little bit unfortunate that it isn't able to really do much. I'm also guessing that probably why he has it back there is that he's probably not planning on arcing a spell through it.
He's going to use
He's
the
probably
control
going to expect to use that solo to control
the flag
on that
yeah.
other, his right side, the one that's been a little bit weaker so far. So we're currently on turn 3. Yeah, so if he ends up running that up there, then he scores that flag. And
Right, when these guys push forward.
Yeah.
I can see that.
So I think if I were Jeremy, we saw him look at his blast widgets a little bit to see what stuff could be blasting onto Ashlyn. Unfortunately for him, I think that he likely could get a blast on her, but in general, that's not going to be enough to. You need more than that.
Right, and if he's just going to hit her up for a couple of points, it's just not going to make a difference.
So Callus got his feet up. His feet's now active. And you know, if I'm Jeremy, I'm expecting that he's probably going to start jamming now with the rot wings, and I would. We're currently sitting at. It's currently at the top of round 3. His opponent is on 1 control point, and Jeremy is at 21 minutes left, and so. I think he did the right thing at the start of the turn, trying to figure out if there is any way that he could do an assassination, because it's feeling right now that if he's trying to go for the long game, that he's in trouble.
Right.
Because he's I don't know that he has enough time at this point to win on scenario or to attrition things out. And so it was a really smart thing for him to be looking for the assassination. I don't know that he had a good line on it, and so he's now at a point where it feels like he really needs to increase the tempo of his turns and try to be getting some action done and things scored going on that way.
Right. Is he a little too passive or just methodical?
Well, so if you say passive...
Like do you think he should have been a little more aggressive, or...
I don't necessarily think that... The strategies that he's been employing have necessarily been an issue, other than time is definitely becoming a problem. It might have been interesting to have feeded last turn. I'm not sure if that would have been better or not.
Right.
But I do think it's interesting. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Charles will have a lot of attacks next round. That'll get him down some as well. And if Jeremy was playing quickly, there's a chance that he could actually reverse this and apply a little time pressure on Charles. Okay. But so far it seems like his this turn isn't going fast enough to kind of...
Right. He's under 20 minutes
that.
now already.
Yeah. But I'm kind of expecting that you'll see the Chosen go forward, do some attacks, and then you'll see the Rotwings running forward as well.
Definitely. So they're just going to fly over everybody and jam?
I would expect so. I mean, if it would really be kind of a waste to have them sitting in the back when they're
not going to make any ink
kind
by
of
that
intended
way.
to be feet fodder at that point.
Definitely.
Another thing I would have been looking for, I don't know if it was possible or not, but if Jeremy could figure out a way to, and honestly, I just don't see how he could have, but if he could figure out a way, he's looking over on his right zone right now, doing some measurements over there. If he could have figured out a way to clear out that zone so that he would end up scoring that zone, scoring that flag, moving something up to contest his opponent's flag, then suddenly it's Charles has 1 point versus 2. Charles will likely be able to get scoring on his flag again, and so it ends up being at 2-2. But it also is kind of a situation where Jeremy's starting to have a little dominance on his other flank.
Right.
And he could start looking at scoring faster than Charles is scoring.
And they can flip those turns around pretty quick that way.
Yeah.
So it looks like he's moving his Chosen up.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that was probably difficult for him to be able to execute that is that if we go look at the telestrator again, one of the things that Charles did that I think was pretty smart last round was when he did his press forward order, he had a trencher who came and charged in here and attacked that
he was just all by himself.
There. And part of the reason why I liked that is because the cavalry, they can do impact attacks, but they have to gain some momentum first. And so,
So they have to move at least 3 inches, right?
Yeah, they're needing to move at least 3 inches before they're getting the impact attack. And so a strong tactic that you can have sometimes versus cavalry is getting in on them and jamming them up a little bit so that they're a high price unit, they're a high value unit.
Definitely.
And if they're kind of jammed up with other models, it makes them a little bit less useful.
Right, you're taking away some of their hitting power.
Yeah, if players who are interested in mastering the game or getting better at the game, one of the areas that I think a lot of players can try to improve their gameplay is if they have a list that have cavalry models in it, they tend to be an area where it takes a lot of practice to master the use of cavalry models. But if you're able to do it, it's something that can have a good result.
Yeah, I know in my history of playing War Machine, it goes back pretty far. One of the units that I always have troubles with playing properly is cavalry.
Yeah. So I want to show something here that I like that Jeremy's doing. He has kind of this crescent of Chosen that's going on here. And he's moved him out so that it's going to make it difficult for Charles to try to move in models to contest the flag here. We're likely going to see this solo move up and control the flag. One of the things you might see Charles do as a response is maybe do a press forward order with the commandos and have this model that I just marked that path with, have him kind of run around the other one and get in here to contest while the other ones are potentially charging in on the Chosen.
So he's kind of protecting that flag. And
yeah. So next round, that's something that I would likely expect to see Charles do.
Right.
But I think that's a really good strategy by Jeremy to be kind of trying to block out things, and I like this as well. You'll see that he's continuing the circle, making it so that when he gets his solo in there to score, that there's basically a ring preventing the scoring from being blocked. And so it's a really good play to try to. Jeremy would love it if his opponent does his turn and he's unable to get stuff in here to contest.
Right. And
so then Jeremy's able to score on Charles's turn, and it's just a really strong scenario play that that Jeremy's trying to set up here.
Did I hear Charles mention that he has ambushers?
Yeah, so one of the models that they just did some measurements to try to see if he was going to be threatened from a strategy that Charles might do. So one of the models that Charles has is Anastasia Debray. And so she's an ambusher, and she has espionage. So what would happen is Anastasia would come out 3 inches, she would advance 7 inches, and then she would do espionage, which is range 5. And you target enemy Warcaster or Warlock. If the Warcaster or Warlock is in range, friendly faction models / units in the smallest command range can immediately take a full advance.
And it looks like maybe did Anastasia come into play up here? I can't.
I don't think
tell.
that she's. Maybe she is. I'm not sure if she's actually ambushed yet or not.
Okay.
I would assume that she hadn't yet, but it's possible that they did last time.
Right. Yes, she did actually come into play. So he did bring her into play up there, and
Okay. So we have B Dragonfly says, did he say cavalry? And I probably did because I'm awful at the English language. So my apologies.
or it could have been me and I said it wrong.
Yeah. I don't think that Jeremy has like little Golgotha mountain that is moving across the battlefield. But I make that mistake fairly frequently. So in the Twitch chat, we have Bane the Lord McCart. He says, I feel a little more attrition and Charles can just make a line and wait it out. I think Jeremy will clock in most any scenario that comes out at this point. And I think that there's some truth to that. I think that one of the things that if I were Charles, one of the things I would be doing is playing very conservatively at this point. I wouldn't be charging in with Ashlyn anymore.
No, that would be dangerous.
Even though she can be a strong option, I think he's better off looking at doing things that are going to be somewhat conservative, so that basically Charles is kind of playing not to lose at this point.
Right. Yeah.
If he does that, he has a big enough clock advantage that it's kind of a foreordained conclusion at this point. I do like another thing that Jeremy's done here. So one of the things that Charles is doing now is they're not going to the clouds aren't going to be doing anything that is that's going to be affecting the rest of the place. So they're removing those before the birds end up landing on the templates.
Probably a good move.
Yeah. So he does have those blight rings.
Yeah.
Blight wings. They've moved up. They're now jamming.
Blighted rot wings.
Yes.
Between the two of us, we'll get this English
Eventually.
thing down.
It would have been a little bit interesting. So he's moving those. Let's do a little Telestrator again. So he has these rot wings up here and up here, and I can't really blame him for doing that per se. I think I would have maybe liked, if possible, for him to have his Blightbringer, if possible, be moving forward a little bit more aggressively.
Right.
Say he's coming up in here, and then have maybe his Chosen in here, and then the Rotwings up ahead of there. And part of what I like about that is that it's not his opponent isn't going to be able to get to if he ends up moving his Blightbringer up into here. There's so much stuff in here, especially with the feet up, that it's safe. And I like the idea of the Blightbringer next round, if he's right here, then being able to advance his 4 inches and threatening most of the things that are potentially here on the flag.
Okay. So
but I can't necessarily blame him for
being a little
for
safer.
doing that.
Yeah. So we missed the Blightbringer actually took a shot. He did
go back to the main scoreboard. So he ends his turn. He ended up scoring a point. We're now at 1-1.
Right.
But unfortunately for Jeremy, He is finished his third turn, and he's at 9 minutes left.
Right. So-
Charles is going to be very conscious of this fact, I think.
Yes, I agree. And the Blightbringer did get a shot off where it did 10 points of damage to the objective and also 7 points of damage to Ashlyn.
Okay.
And he killed Gibbs with all in that one AoE.
Interesting. Okay. Jeremy is going to have his feat. He uses it, and it's kind of a defensive feat, and it takes place during a round. And so what's going to happen now is when Charles does his turn, if he kills, for example, one of that Rotwing that he's looking at right there, a Incubus is going to pop in its place, and that Incubus is going to be at +3 defense because it's a soulless model. And if then Charles manages to kill the Incubus after that, then it will not do another Incubus. There's not going to be wishing for wishes.
And each Incubus comes in as a solo, is that right?
Yeah, the Incubus are solos.
Right.
So I would expect at this point for Charles probably to look at using his feet on this turn. He'll probably be doing a fair number of attacks. It'll also, as we've talked about earlier in the cast, it'll add some defensive ability, but in this matchup, it'll be a little bit minimal.
Okay. So it looks like Ashlyn healed up a little bit of that damage from her objective.
Okay. Yeah, both players took the healing objective, and that takes place before the activation phase. I do like the. Did you also do the? Did you sculpt the Rotwings, Doug?
I did not.
Okay. I enjoy the paint job that Jeremy has on them.
Yes.
The different colors that are going on the wings, I think, are pretty well done.
Yeah, they really jump out. I can't say enough. His army really looks nice.
Yeah. And one of the things with the Iron Gauntlet, one of the requirements for this tournament is that the players are all required to be fully painted. If you come to a Privateer Press tournament, the current rules that we're playing with, if you want to take place in a Masters event or a Champions event, feel free to come play. I think that we're focused on players getting the game in, and the game always looks better if you're painted, but there are some tournaments or some events that other companies do or other organizers where it is painting required, and at the events here at Lock and Load, etc., I would say that it's painting encouraged but not required, and so I don't think that people should feel like that's a barrier if they don't have an army that looks like Jeremy's yet.
Right. Yes.
But it's definitely something that you can aspire to.
It's funny, when I first started playing, my army was always the gray army.
Right, yeah.
And as I've gotten more and more deeper into the game, now I try to play fully painted every chance I get.
Yeah, I'm a little bit fortunate as someone who I'm a store owner who does podcasts and a lot of stuff related to the game, where ever since I started Chain Attack, Trevor and I kind of decided that we wanted to focus on trying to have painted models on the table, and I think it helps things out quite a bit, and it makes it look better and makes people be more interested in the game.
Right,
so
definitely.
We've got a little action going on over here. We had a Chosen that was there. He managed to kill the Chosen. It failed its tough check, so it didn't heal. And then he put back into place a Incubi, and then he shot again and managed to kill that. So I think what Charles is looking at right now is whether or not he can run with Anastasia and get her in to contest the flag.
Right.
One of the things that Anastasia used to have was acrobatics that would make her ignore free strikes. I think she used to have that, but that is no longer true. So if he had some melee ranges that would potentially, if he had to go far enough back, stop that. But I think that he can actually end up running something in here that you should be able to get placed in here,
to contest
be
it.
within 4 inches, not take a free strike,
Right.
and stop the scoring that Jeremy was really hoping, I think, to try to get some points on.
Yeah, I thought he was set up
Charles
pretty good there,
turn.
but maybe not so much. From the Facebook chat.
Yeah, so Madelyn Corbeau goes on that other flag and again gets parlay going so that
Oh, that's bad.
melee attacks aren't going to be able to go on her and aren't going to be able to go on the caster.
Right.
Okay. So my mistake, Anastasia does have parry on her card as her little symbol icon. And so good point from Grab Your Foot. She still has parry.
That's good. That helps us. Shout out to Advanced Maneuvers.
I'm actually a little surprised that Charles is doing this. So I think if I had gone, I would have maybe been a little bit more conservative. So
Right, so he's spawning Incubi.
Ashlyn came over, popped her feet, and then is doing flashing blades. And that's going to be attacking all these models in here.
Right.
It's kind of a bold choice. Ashlyn was over here. I think that I would have been pretty tempted if I'd been Charles, to kind of withdraw over in here, do feet. And it feels right now that one of his main loss scenarios at this point is his caster. And so he's going to have his caster up in here. And then she's probably going to go and move backward, sorry. And she will still have parlay going and stuff like that, but it does feel a little bit to me that it would have been safer for him to just withdraw a little bit feet and then let the game kind of go its course without
It's a bold
being as
move.
aggressive without her.
Yeah, that was pretty aggressive.
Fortune can favor the bold sometimes, so
Yes.
it is interesting. He's doing his flashing blade and is just trying to go to town on clearing stuff out.
It is a pretty good move, though. You kill off the rot wings, they spawn the incubi, and then buy flashing blade again and kill them off.
Yeah, it's interesting. Another thing we'd mentioned before that it seemed like one of the main uses that Charles was going to get from his feet was offensively, and we're seeing that kind of play out. So he's doing flashing blades where going against the incubi, they have the plus to defense from Callus's feet.
Right.
And so he's needing some fairly high numbers to hit. But with Ashlyn's feet roulette, he's rolling 4 dice. He's keeping the 2 high ones.
Pretty good chance.
And then he's able to do that. And so he had done flashing blade twice. Now he's going a third time right now to get more attacks out.
That looks like a tough check on the chosen, but he makes it.
And Ashlyn also has parry, and so she's moved up there. She's not going to kill all of these chosen, and
Right.
they're engaging each other, but she's still going to be able to
She can jump away.
back away some if she
Right.
wants to go reposition back 3 inches.
Right.
He did another flashing blade and managed to kill a chosen. He is doing his weapon master damage, obviously.
Right. Weapon master and under her feet.
Yeah, the feat is only on the attack rolls. So the weapon master is going to help on damage.
Great.
But Charles not too happy with his dice rolls currently.
Grab your foot. Gibbs is dead yet?
Oh,
yes.
yeah, yep. So
Gibbs,
he's not going to be repositioning.
right. Gibbs got clipped with the Blightbringer's AoE last turn. Brandon in Facebook asked about the Infernal Heavy kit. Is it a kit or 2 separate models? It's 2 separate models.
So B Dragonfly, did Gibbs survive?
Did Gibbs cat survive?
That did not. He did not survive, so we're not looking at the... Let me pull him up so that for our listeners who are not familiar with him can get an idea with that. So Major Harrison Gibbs, he has leadership Leolese. While in this model's command range, friendly Leolese warrior models gain feign death and reposition 3. So that was what was giving that reposition previously.
Ah, okay.
Looks like we've got some Chosen who are knocked down, and if a Chosen gets knocked down and passes its tough check, it's still going to get its healing. It's going to be up above 1. If Charles then manages to do more damage to it and manages to get it down so that it's enough to kill it, it will not get a tough check, since knockdown models do not get tough checks.
Okay.
To finish out, Ashlyn ended up getting admonition out on herself.
Ah, so she's able to at least slide away a little bit.
Yeah, she's got some protections up going on.
And admonition is going to let her move 2 inches when she gets charged?
So if something ends its movement within 6 inches of her, she's going to be able to advance 3 inches.
3 inches,
and
okay.
she will ignore free strikes as she's doing so.
Right.
Charles is going with the gun mages next. It has been kind of interesting to see Charles playing Ashlyn. He obviously has a lot more experience playing her than I do, and each round he's gotten some pretty significant contributions from her.
Right. Really.
And it's kind of fun when you're able to play a caster who's able to chip in some damage, kill some models, stuff like that. And this round, obviously, she did a lot more than just chip. With her flashing blades, she was doing some pretty significant model removal. Looks like we've killed a Rotwing, and that's popped out a Incubi. Charles was needing an 8 to hit the Incubi, and with his feet up, he managed to get it and killed the Incubi. So, Doug, I know you've never been necessarily as much of a tournament player, but what would you say are some of your parts of when you play War Machine that you enjoy the most with the game?
Usually, for me, it's mostly casual. I honestly just enjoy being able to get out and interact with other players or with my friends. I have a lot of trouble staying with the same list, though, or with the same army even. There's just so many options that I like, especially being around it as long as I have.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I would like to see with the War Machine community, and I mentioned earlier that I was involved in the Chain Attack community builders.
Which we appreciate.
One of the things I think that there's been kind of a focus on with War Machine with competitive play and potentially convention play. And I think that those things are important. Those things have value. But really, the core of the game is something that's your local community.
Definitely.
And being able to go out and play with your friends. And if you don't have a good set of friends or a good local community to go play with, then the game just loses a lot of its luster.
Right. Can you just briefly tell people about the Chain Attack Community Builders?
Yeah, sure. So the Community Builders, it was an initiative that the Chain Attack hosts we started where we felt like there was a little bit of negativity going on with the community. And so we wanted to try to be kind of a positive impact on the community. And so we were trying to do things like encouraging people to, we kind of created 4 areas that were sportsmanship, being a good online citizen, running local events and getting new players into the game.
Right.
And we felt that one of the things we did is we have a Facebook page that if you're not a member, go join. And it's the Chain Attack Community Builders, and you can nominate people who you think are doing a good job with those different aspects. And it will, as people do these nominations, we talk about them on the podcast. We send out prizes to people who win each week, and we just are trying to do what we can to try to be the change that we want to see happening with the community.
Great.
So we had an interesting question here that I think would be good for us to dive into a little bit. So Inverse Matrix says, I have no idea how to handle the death clock. I haven't started doing tournaments yet, want to, but I just don't know how to handle it, as in not getting murdered by clock every game. So the biggest thing I can recommend is that, first of all, if you are, as you're first getting used to playing on clock, just realize that it's going to, starting off, it's going to feel really pressured, and accept that. Realize that you might end up losing some games on clock. That's okay. And really, it's kind of about doing what you can to get better at the game, get better at clock. And one of the things I would do is start practicing with death clock as you do your normal games. We do that a lot at my store. Another thing that as you start, I would say the first step is playing on death clock. As you start getting a little bit more used to it, one of the things I recommend is playing some timed turns. So one of the things I'll commonly do if I'm prepping for a event is I'll play, like, say, an 8-minute time turn with a 3 or 4 minute extension once a game.
Right.
And if you're able to do that, then you're going to be fine on when you start going to tournaments.
And I've played a format similar to that before, where it was a kind of a casual tournament where you had one round that you were able to tap into some extended time, and it was good practice.
Yeah.
I am not good with the clock, though.
So it is kind of interesting. One of the comments in the thread we have, Flynn's in 007. He says, Ashland within 10 inches of the Blightbringer feels bad. The reply from the York admonition is up. That's correct. So if he ends up charging in the Blightbringer, Ashland will just end up kind of buzzing away and being okay, being safe.
Right.
It is interesting. So Charles has been fighting back, and one of the things that another tip with clock pressure and playing on a clock is that if I was Charles, right now it's my third turn, and I've spent 14 minutes. Honestly, that's not a good amount of time either.
Yes, I agree.
But one of the things that's interesting with it is that one of the things that you can do is you're almost playing to your opponent. And so if you keep, like, say, maybe a 5-10 minute buffer where you are an advantage on your opponent, then that's still applying the pressure on your opponent. And still, like Charles, when he started his turn, he knew that he had a time advantage and knew that if he ended up, it didn't matter if he was 10 minutes or 20 minutes up, really. His opponent was still kind of in a bind with what was going on.
Right, and he there's not too much of a time advantage anymore, is there?
There's not, but it's not going to matter.
Okay.
Charles is going to end his turn here soon, and Jeremy is going to, honestly, I'm not expecting him to get through his next turn. I think that he's going to lose next round on time.
That Jeremy's going to lose on time?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's possible that he takes a 6 or 7 minute turn and has 2 or 3 minutes left, but at that point, unless Charles makes some mistake, the game's over anyway.
Right.
So.
Okay. Wow. Is there anything Jeremy can do to maximize what time he has left?
Honestly, I kind of feel like where it's round 3, the only thing that Jeremy can be looking at is going for an assassination.
Right.
And so how would I do that? 9 minutes is actually a good chunk for an assassination. Things I would be looking at, I don't want to trigger admonition. And so I would likely be doing stuff like aiming with the Lightbringer and shooting. Another thing that I would be doing is Callus would be moving over so that he stays outside of admonition triggering range, 6 inches, and also stays outside of parley range of 7 inches. And then I would be looking at doing a spell into Ashlyn.
Okay.
And I think between the Blightbringer and between that spell, there's actually a chance that Charles could come back and get the assassination.
Right.
And I'll go back to a telestration again a little bit, but if he started his turn with Ashlyn in here, I think that if he had moved her back a little bit, maybe been in this area, and then done a camp of, say, 3-4 Fury,
Right.
that he would have been totally safe.
Okay.
And it feels like he went from a position where at the start of his turn he could have played it so that he had basically a guaranteed win. And now there's the door open where I think that Charles is still likely to win. But if his opponent goes for the assassination, there's a chance that it could work.
Right.
And it likely would have been smarter to just completely shut out that possibility.
Okay.
So looking at a few comments, another thing that does make this a little bit difficult is that, again, Ashlyn's feat is up. And so that will make it more difficult. If the Blightbringer, for example, aims, then he's currently in feet range. But his gun is long enough range that he could opt to back out, and then
he won't suffer from those dice.
So you're going to get +2 aiming if you stay where you're at. I think you're better off not getting the aim bonus, backing up some, being outside of her
feet
actually,
range.
let me double check her focus. I had just assumed that she was a focus 6 caster, which she is, so he is able to move out of her control range.
Right. And he'd still be able to target her.
Be able to target her.
Okay.
And then I would also end up moving up the spell martyr so that he is going to channel my spell and move Callus back so that he's outside of the feet range, and so I'm able to get both attacks in.
Right. So if he's channeling the spell, it's not going to be affected by your feet.
Correct. It's the point of origin Callus that is where you're checking, not the channeler. So it is interesting that Charles is continuing to go with this round. He's had a very long term this time.
He has.
And it feels like if I'm Jeremy, I maybe do have the possibility now, if I do a really quick, a really tight turn, and almost maybe if I don't even focus so much on attacks, just maybe blocking some scoring and stuff like that, maybe I run the Blightbringer. So going back to the Telestrator, we've got the Blightbringer here. If I had these models all jam up in here and then had the Blightbringer run up here, that's basically going to block the scoring going on over here.
Right.
And honestly, the scoring doesn't matter a ton at this point because both players are starting to get down on time so low that we're not going to get to the end of round 7. It's whoever is going to either get an assassination off or have their clock run out.
Right.
And so if I'm Jeremy, what I'm thinking is I'm going to do my turn as quickly as possible. I'm going to move my stuff up. I'm going to if I get the Blightbringer up there, it's almost like it's bait to my opponent, because if my opponent's like, oh, I've got a Blightbringer here, I'm going to spend my turn trying to kill it, And it's almost a trap because if you're spending, it doesn't matter, honestly, at this point, if you kill the Blightbringer. What matters is who ends up having their clock run out first.
Right. Well, it's a race on the clock with Charles having 7 minutes and Jeremy's at 9.
Yeah, so we have a comment here from the York. Charles, too nice to play purely to clock. This is the Iron Gauntlet. Crush him under your feet, play to clock, take whatever victory condition is going to end up doing it. Okay, so Charles ends. He scores 1 on his flag. He ends his turn at 6 minutes, 54 seconds.
Not a lot of time.
It's now 2 control points to 1. Jeremy could very easily now block that zone. If this was actually going to be an attrition in a scenario game, there's plays he could make, but really those don't matter in my opinion. Everything that matters right now is the clock and what people are going to do about the clock.
All right, so we move to Jeremy's turn on the top of turn 4.
Got fire on a... Oh, it looks like it was maybe on a different one.
Ah, yes.
So Jeremy's getting a tentacle out. I think maybe trying to figure out what he was wanting to do on his turn. Got a comment here from One Up Kid. He says, Jay did the first Iron Gauntlet Championship with a death clock victory. And that's true. So my first round I played Trent Dennison, and I got an Assassination, Siege 1, Assassinated, Scar 1. On my second round, I also got an Assassination. I played Keith Christensen, and Haley 2 got an Assassination on Asphyxius 2. And then on the final 2 rounds were via clock. I was playing Haley 2 versus Morvana 2, and then the final round was me versus Jason Watt. I had Siege 1 versus I think LeConte. It was definitely Convergence from Jason Watt.
Right, I remember Convergence.
Yeah, and there were definitely points in the game, in both of those games, specifically the Haley 2 versus Morvana 2, where I had options where there was a decision point of, do I think my best odds to win the game is going to be versus clock, or could I pursue assassination, pursue attrition? And there were actually very strong plays in attrition in that, but I felt like my win percentage was actually higher if I went with the clock, and so I did some moves that were kind of defensive, like I talked about on this cast, and in particularly in the Morvana 2 play, I think that ultimately it ended up being a miscalculation on my point and part, and that it likely would have been better for me to pursue some attrition plays. I ended up, my opponent got some attacks on Haley. He hit, and then time was called, and the damage didn't go through. And so he kind of taunted himself, like, okay, I'm going to see what damage would have been, and rolled it. And I think he rolled 18 on his 3 dice and would have killed her if it had had time to go through. So
it's like missing the buzzer beater.
Yeah. So we've got the Chosen on that side going. This is an interesting play. I kind of like this. So
it's going to trigger admonition?
It won't trigger admonition yet because he hasn't finished his movement. And so he's charging in, and movement has not yet ended, but we are doing an impact attack. So kind of a canny play. It is interesting, though, that with the feet up, it missed. Charles did a riposte, and I couldn't see if that missed. I think it did miss, though.
It did miss. And then he riposte back at the Chosen.
Looks like they're going on the other model that was nearby with the impact attack. So the Jack, we talked about this earlier, he had, I think, 5, 3, 3, 2, 1. Charles ended up taking off the 3, so there wasn't a crit, so there isn't a knockdown.
Right.
It was a good play with Jeremy to try to get the impact attack on Ashlyn. It is a little bit unfortunate that with feet up, it was pretty low odds that he was actually going to be able to get the impact off.
And here comes the Blightbringer.
Here comes the Blightbringer. So this is the point that we're likely going to see a admonition go off. Did do the admonition, should move back towards the flag.
Oh, so she moves out of range. Or melee range. So
looks like we've got some attacks going on the jack.
POW 20.
Looking to
Tail
whittle
strike.
it down. And we see right now that Jeremy's clock is down to 310. I told you before that unless he shifted his play style, that I didn't think that he was likely going to make it out of his turn.
Right.
And it's looking like that's likely going to be what ends up happening.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a lot of math going on.
Yeah, lots of dice getting thrown around. So Necroteer 18 says he said that he thought that she was immune to knockdown innately. It's not quite. She has Chosen Ground, which gives Pathfinder and Steady. It's an upkeep spell. Since she had Admonition up on her, she did not have Chosen Ground up. And
he jumps in and corrects himself and that he's wrong and he's leaving.
He says, whoops,
Necroteer-
I'll leave.
Yeah,
No, we don't want you
leave.
to leave.
Yes,
Yeah,
just stay with us.
Everyone makes those mistakes.
Absolutely. I do it all the time.
Yeah. So we've got the Chosen going on the other flank. He's doing the cavalry attack, and it does hit, even with dropping the two best. This is going on the jack.
Right.
Looks like Charles is playing on War Room on his phone.
Minute and a half left for Jeremy, and it's not looking good.
Yeah, just about to wind down. The birds are pressing forward. It would have been interesting to see if he had tried going for the assassination with doing the Blightbringer shots and the eruption, if that would have been enough to get the job done.
Yeah, I
would
wondered
have
if
still had to roll the dice well, but I think that had some decent odds. He also, like I said before, I think that if he had basically just jammed in and tried to pass the turn, it would have been interesting to see how Charles would have responded and see if he...
Oh, wow, Ashlyn is going after the Blightbringer.
So we have passed the turn. My prediction was a little bit wrong in that he didn't make it past the turn, but it was right that I said he'd probably only have 1, 2, 3 minutes left, and that's kind of where he's at.
Yeah, and he picked up no points that turn, is that right?
I think that he did end up scoring his flag.
Okay.
And so I believe it's at 2-2.
So he scored that top flag again.
Charles is going in on the Blightbringer. It'll be interesting to see if Ashlyn manages to take him out.
And Ashlyn's feat is expired now, right?
Right. Does seem like a very strange choice to me from Charles. I mean, he's basically at a point where all he has to do is run his caster away, and he's going to win the game.
Right.
If for some reason he clocks out trying to kill the Blightbringer, or if he ends up failing to kill the Blightbringer, all his opponent has to do is heal an aspect or two and then try to boost some attacks, and that'll potentially kill Ashlyn. So interesting play. We'll see how this goes off. He is doing flashing blade attacks, which is getting the chosen in there as well.
Simon on Facebook says, I watch a game once in a while, and it always ends up as a grind fest or on a death clock. Haven't seen Simon paint before. Hopefully he's painting while he's watching.
Well, hopefully I think it's still, even though it's been a grindy game, I think it's still been pretty interesting.
It is.
And there's been a lot of interesting turns in the game that I think highlight how many tactical decisions there are in War Machine.
Right.
So I think some of the interesting decision points, we've seen some of the scenario play where they've been kind of forcing the action based around those flags and trying to cause conflict, trying to score off them, trying to block the opponent going off there. And the timing on feats, for example, I wasn't sure if Jeremy was going to run forward models and feed on turn 2 or if he was going to save it for turn 3. Jeremy did also a good job of trying to create kind of a circle that was going to prevent scoring. It didn't work out, but it's the type of play that you do to try to increase odds all you can.
I'm impressed with how impressive Charles has played Ashlyn.
Yeah, he's been very, very aggressive. It's been interesting to watch. One of the comments or questions is from One Up Kid. Would Charles killboxing himself be a smart move in this case? It actually would probably have been a pretty strong play.
And what would that have done?
It would have. So if you killbox yourself, it gives 2 points to your opponent.
Okay.
But again, Jeremy's not going to be able. That's only going to matter if Jeremy is able to get up by 5 points, or if he gets to the end of round 7 and he has more control points.
Okay.
Honestly, I don't see either of those being able to happen in the amount of time that has left. And so I had kind of showed an advance that went off in an angle. So with the illustration, if Ashlyn started her turn here, if she had come back over here, that would have made it so that she wouldn't have killboxed herself if you stayed up 12 inches. But another option that you could have done, like you said, was just run 12 inches clear back here.
Right. Took the Blightbringer down.
He did manage to kill the Blightbringer. He's gotten down to 2 minutes, but I think the main danger was the Blightbringer there. So with that killed, that does help. Honestly, I would feel like if I was Charles, I would try to get my parlay up with Anastasia and then get my turn passed, and then I'm likely good.
Right.
Yeah, the York says, given Charles' decisions, I don't think killboxing himself was in the conversation. This is a man who wants to kill things with Ashlyn. And I would have to say that your comment is correct. I mean, he's been doing a lot of work with Ashlyn, and it's kind of refreshing, kind of interesting to see that. So that's well done by Charles.
Yeah. Zimmergeist asked if he'll see me at Gen Con. Yes, I am actually working the privateer booth at Gen Con this year, so come by and see me. I don't know what I'll be doing yet, but I'll be there.
Charles, this is like the suspense that is going on here is going to kill me.
These guys are in fast motion.
All Charles has to do is pass the turn, like just run models, or it doesn't matter. And he's like, oh, well, I'm going to do attacks, and I'm going to kill blight rings.
Oh,
and we're now getting to the point where he's under a minute. He's got 40 seconds left. His opponent is at a minute.
This is crazy.
This is crazy.
Yeah.
He's passed the turn. He scores a point. It's now 3-2. His opponent is at 55 seconds. He's got stuff coming in. It'll be interesting to see if he ends his turn or if he's just going to end up, if he's going to clock out on this.
Right. Wow, they're both at 37 seconds.
So one of the questions I'll get to once this game is done, but we'll see how this plays out before I answer it. But it's a question on winning or losing in style or winning on the clock. And I think that's actually a pretty interesting question. We're starting to count down. Jeremy's down
8
now
seconds.
under 10 seconds. And he
just
passed the
passed
clock.
it over.
He did. And so now we're back to Charles.
And I didn't see how many points Jeremy scored that turn. Was it just the one?
Yeah, I think that he might have scored one as well. So there used to be a rule where you had to have meaningful activations, basically.
Oh, he passed it over both
And
in
he
5
passed
seconds.
it over. And that is going to be
Time.
game.
He's out.
So that the meaningful activation stuff is basically a part of the past. There's a little confusion on if the game is done, but yes, it is.
Yes. It clocked on Jeremy.
It clocked on Jeremy. Okay, so back to the question about losing in style versus winning on clock. One of the responses is winning's greater than losing. I will say that I think that it is playing a clean game is important, and so you want to do what you can to play a clean, tight game. Whether you're winning on assassination, whether you're winning on clock, whether you're winning on scenario, a win's a win. What matters is your sportsmanship. There's no, in my opinion, there's no issue with winning on clock, and so that's something that you actually should be playing with. It's part of the game. You just want to be sure that you're having sportsmanship and you're having clean, tight play.
Definitely.
So,
well, that was the end of our first game in the Iron Gauntlet. Jay, thanks for joining us, and we're going to have some more Iron Gauntlet coming up later.
awesome. Yeah, this is a great
What a
game.
game.
And there should be some more exciting games coming up. So
Thanks for
you guys
joining
should
us.
Stay tuned.
Everyone, we'll see you next time. Jay, thank you so much. Appreciate it.